Good morning, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room, Star Stripes and Infant Nights. I am Count Oil. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do the Nosferatu impression. Welcome, everyone, to your late night edition of pain. I'm just kidding. It's not painful. It was a great game today against Nottingham Forrest and Liverpool, as Liverpool traveled to the City Ground and scraped a point, but could have had so much more and possibly should have had so much more based on our second half performance, though our first half was very dire. I am your host, Dan, and it's Toby and it's Colin. We're all here. We're here. We're happy. We're practicing our Nosferatu impressions. We'll be getting into it tonight, guys. So make sure you hit like, share, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, hit us up on Tumblr, Snapchat us at Facebook, and reel us at Instagram. I don't remember what Instagram called it for the most part, but I'm so happy to be here tonight and back in the hosting chair for the Americans. We finally got Drew, that California hack off the show. We're some real East Coast Bostonians. I'm not Bostonian by nature. So Toby, I'm gonna come to you first because I know you kind of you told me again you kind of watched the game when Jota scored. When Jota scored, did you have hope, and was that hope beaten out of you?
Oh yeah, well, I started having hope a little bit prior to that goal because it looked like Liverpool was starting to break through the back four. Remember, Nottingham Forest is a team that like to play defense, and they don't mind having 30-20% possession per game. That's just their style. That's just how they play. So I think what we were able to do in this game, and the fact that we even came away with a draw. I mean, I think it's a win in my opinion. But yeah, Forrest, they're a tough team. Got to give them credit. Even I think Colin mentioned it before the show. Like that place was rocking. I mean, those fans were loud. So for us to just get a point out of this, I think it's a win, in my opinion. What do y'all think?
Colin, I'll let you go next because I know we probably share very much the same opinion on this, but I'll let you go next about our very good draw there.
I think we're a little bit lucky in our circumstances that nobody else is really gaining ground. Um, Still have a game in hand, and I think the Force are absolutely legitimate. I don't know if they're going to be in second place when the season ends, but I certainly don't see them anywhere below fifth or sixth. They're a legitimate team. They're committed to, as Toby pointed out, to their craft of defending and going fast in the counter when it's on. So I don't see this as like a massive. Now we can be disappointed because we maybe should have converted some chances, and in another world, like we win the game. But that's a really good team. That's a super hard place to be playing at the moment. Um, and we're not in the best of form at the moment. It doesn't mean that we're dead, that we're torched, but um, I do think that we're just lacking a little bit of the cutting edge at the moment, and I'm sure we'll start to find it again. But I think it's a good result.
So let's kind of start there from the lineup. So if you look at the lineup that both teams go with, I think that Slot goes with what he thinks is his best lineup. Trent and right back, to get him one playing, I think get him into some rhythm. Regardless of the contract talks, Trent is still the better player than Connor Bradley. People could disagree with that all they want, but you can just see, that counter in the first half where Trent just pings a 60-yard ball to Diaz. Diaz spins the defender. We're 2-on-1. Diaz messes it up in transition. He could have slipped Gakpo through or took a shot on. That's a whole other story, but you just there aren't players that could do that in the Premier League. You could probably name two or three potentially, and none of them play for Liverpool. Well, maybe McAllister could do that, but I don't think he has the passing range. Van Dijk maybe could do that. I think, but you don't really see Van Dijk's raking 40-yard balls anymore. Quans is a bit underrated, I think, as a passer, but someone that who does that, and you're just like, yeah, that's Trent. Trent can just do that as well. And as Lassetti said here, Trent actually looked asked. I agree. I actually think Trent was very much in the game today, though I think that was more the fact that everyone's been sick. So everyone's like just had illnesses and stuff. And this seemed like a game where everyone seems to be getting out, shaking off the cobwebs as much. But I want to go to the lineup first. So Forrest start with Wood. They go with Wood, Alenga, and Hudson-Odoi very first up. So they're like, we're ready to go in a counterattack. They don't really create much except for their one chance in the 7th minute. They win a ball off Salah, 3 passes. Verge, the line's off for Verge. Chris Wood, bang. The worst possible start, I would say, Colin, considering how well I think we started out playing before then.
Yeah,
but
Konate doesn't get himself back quickly enough either, to be honest. He had stepped in and doesn't react quickly enough to he doesn't start moving backwards as quickly as needed and doesn't cover it super well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, Toby, I don't know where you're at on this, and you can give me your opinion. Were you hoping Connor Bradley started this game, or were you like Trent's always going to start this game no matter what?
Yeah, so I was pretty much under the impression that Trent was going to start. I imagine Arne Slot was going to run out his best starting 11. However, I want to turn the focus to the other side, on the left back side. I was a little surprised that Robbo got the start over Tsimikas, considering that Forrest, their team, that, like I said earlier, they don't mind playing defense. They don't mind having 30% possession. There we go. Try saying that 3 times fast. 30% possession per game. They just don't mind doing that, and they'll just try to beat you on the counters. In a game like this, I think you want to have attacking options, and I think minus the attacking option, I do think Tsimikas presents a chance to help build that up in sense. Like, he does put dangerous crosses in the box. I mean, we saw that earlier today with the goal. Even like 20 seconds into the game, he puts a cross into Jota, and there's the score. So I'm a little more surprised that Tsimikas didn't get the start. Outside of that, the starting 11 didn't really surprise me. I imagine Slot wanted to go more attack, and try to break through that rigid, tough back four. So, but yeah, to kind of go back to your question, Dan, I was not surprised that Trent started. Kind of want all hands on deck, best players, your best starting 11 possible to get the W in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Toby, I'll come back to you, and Colin, you can chip in as well. Are you surprised that he's been starting Robinson more consistently than Robertson? I think it's important to remember that Tsimikas actually has an assist. I think that's actually that might be his second assist at this point. I'm just double checking if the Athletic has updated their stats or ESPN. No, they haven't yet. So Tsimikas now, I think, is on 2 assists for the season. Robbo still has none. If you think back to, if you had asked someone 3 years ago, it's like, hey, Andy Robertson's still going to be the left back at Liverpool, and he's going to be providing, less than 5 assists a season in the league. You would have thought, well, if he's left back, either we're winning or we're in trouble. And 2, he was averaging, I think, 10, 11, 12 assists for a couple of years. Granted, that's changed since we've changed systems under Klopp and now Arne Slot. Why do you think he's gone for Robertson recently, Toby?
I think it's mainly due to experience. That should be honest. I still think Robbo is the better left back than Tsimikas, but I mean, I think age is starting to play a factor here with Robbo. He's just letting a lot of chances go by him, or I don't really know how to phrase it. Just he hasn't looked particularly good this season, and I think with Tsimikas, he just kind of offers a chance for Robbo to kind of get some rest and help him recover from games. So I think mainly it's just due to experience, and you gotta respect the experience. Sure, like he's not playing well, but the experience is there.
So, Colin, I'm going to ask you the same question because, like we said before in the chat, you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and this season the Steelers started Wilson a lot more than Justin Fields. They started Justin Fields, even though I think Justin Fields is right now the better quarterback or the more dynamic quarterback, I think. So,
Sure.
why do you think? I don't know if you agree with that statement, but that's okay.
I do.
So, why do you think he's starting Robinson? Because I have a theory based on it. But I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I think it's defensive consistency. I don't think that even though Robertson doesn't always look as pretty as defense does. Like when Van Dijk plays defense, when he's in an action where he's actively defending, it looks good. Like it looks aesthetic. And when Robertson defends, especially now, it doesn't look good. It looks like he's scrambling. But I don't think actually defensively he's all that bad or has been all that bad. I definitely think at this point, I think Tsimikas' delivery is better. And Tsimikas was not, it wasn't that long ago that he wasn't fully fit. So I don't, I think at a certain point you get into like rhythms of like when people are playing and you just find it hard to kind of work someone else in. I think it is kind of more of that rather than, I don't think that he thinks Tsimikas is bad at all. He puts him on with a lot of time left when we need to kind of chase, and he asks a lot of him. He asks, for him to in defensive moments to be in a back three essentially, but he's also asking him to push way further on when we're in an offensive third as well. So, I don't think that it's like that he doesn't think all that highly of him. I just think that Robertson's the elder statesman, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a couple of things. So I think I agree with you. And I actually think it's interesting how he rates Tsimikas, because I think it's very interesting that when he puts Tsimikas on, he's taking a defender off and he's saying, hey, you're going to be 1v1. So you have to be prepared to defend 1v1 in open space. And I think that, Klopp never did that. Well, Klopp kind of did that, but then shied away from it. And I think most fans and I think most fans of this team would not be over here saying, put Costas 1v1, with a defender, with space behind him, essentially, with no extra help. And I think that because Slot's doing that, I think what Slot trusts is I think he trusts maybe not his positioning, but maybe his ability to bail himself out and also not lose the ball. I think why he starts Robinson a lot of games is that Robinson's the only fullback that's overlapping. Like if you watch, Trent's not doing a lot of overlaps. He's inverting. Salah's going around. Szoboszlai goes inside, or Jota pulls inside. But you're not really having a fullback create space except for Robertson. So if you look at this team, who is playing a winger role, it's usually Andy Robertson in that case as well.
He's like giving width. To your point, Tsimikas is like giving width, but he's not necessarily overlapping and going. He's not the one to go down the line as much as he does give width, and he is way out there, but he's not as committed forward as opposed to Robertson. I think that's correct.
I'm about to start arguing with Carter in the chat again, as I always do. Colin's been there to watch. He's like, I understand. Yeah, I understand, Dan. You go ahead. You fight your battles, man. I actually think that's a really good point, Colin. And Toby, I don't know if you've noticed as well. If you watch for Robinson's position, even though he, like I say, he's providing width, he's not going to the byline and playing a cross back like he normally would. That's why he got all those assists. Is that if you look at where Trent and Robinson are delivering the ball, it's almost like a traditional winger cutting it back, cutting it back from those sides. But where he is now, he's more in the inside channel, or he's literally at the center forward position. At times, there are times this season where he's literally been the furthest one forward, making a run, and how Slot has used them, which I think is very interesting. And the reason I want to bring that up is before we move on, we'll get into Szoboszlai, and I'm going to be banging the Szoboszlai defense drum until the end of time. Yes, we all love Carter. Listen, I love Carter to death. I find him very insightful. It's just a lot of those insights I think are insanity to some degree. They only make sense if I turn my head to the sideways and just tilt my head a bit. It makes sense then. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Absolutely. And listen, I don't want to throw shots here because if he's watching, I love you, Carter.
I like Carter. I have deep respect for his commitment to his bits. I think some of them are bits, and I think some of them are true takes. But I respect his commitment to them.
He is going places. Colin, he is going places like Joy Taylor at FS1. That's all I'm saying. He is going.
Oh well,
he's going places
the same way Maybe not in the same way.
See, Toby understands what I'm saying. Listen, for all those people watching who have no idea what I'm talking about, just go on Twitter, look up FS1 lawsuit. You'll see what it is. It's all there. It's amazing. Just watch. Like I love FS1. I have nothing against Joy Taylor. I never thought anything about her being a sports broadcaster. I enjoyed all those shows in college. I enjoyed them as an adult. It was just I read that I'm just like my heart is sad now. Like we truly live in an unjust world at this point. But like I said before, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, get in those comments. Let's talk about left backs. So a little bit for transfers. So we're going to transition a little bit into the transfers a bit. But before we do that, I do actually want to bring up Szoboszlai. So here's the thing. He says Szoboszlai was kind of wasteful today. I disagree. I think Szoboszlai has always been Szoboszlai has always been someone that has done a lot of the dirty. He's the new Genuine Wijnaldum. You know, he does a lot of running. He's helping the team maintain its pressing its shape. But then every 5 minutes they're saying like he's a bad footballer. Why is he losing the ball here or giving the ball away? Granted, Genie didn't do that as much, but he reminds me of maybe I guess like better examples Oxlade-Chamberlain a bit when how Klopp was using him very early on and then how he got used the rest of after he came back from his injury. I thought Szoboszlai had a bad first half. I thought the entire team had a bad first half. And then as the second half got improved, he improved. And I think you have to pass the ball and the system dead. Listen, Jay Muse, watch the game. There are so many times Szoboszlai plays a very beautiful ball out to the wing. He is playing great passes all the time. No one talks about it because they only talk about when he loses the ball, which is crazy that we talk about that with a 10. But for me, I think Szoboszlai is just the person people are targeting because they want, Florian Wirtz. They look at Martin Odegaard or Kevin De Bruyne, or they see another example is like Sandro Tonali or Bruno Guimaraes, or they see some other midfielder they want, and they're like, get rid of that guy, and get rid of Szoboszlai and put this other guy in. And I think it's the same thing we have with Darwin because, Holland went, Isak went, all these players that we look at and get jealous of. But Colin, Toby, what is your opinion on how Szoboszlai played? Toby, you can kind of tell me what you think of him in the past and what you saw from this game. But Colin, I'll come back to you first.
I thought it was a tale of two halves. I thought he was, and like you said, I don't think that we were very good in the first half to be honest. But I thought Arne Slot is to me the best manager at halftime adjustments. If other teams are not also adjusting what they're doing from the first half, Arne Slot is going to have you figured out for the second half. We're super dangerous, and I thought a lot of his movements, a lot of his combination, especially to the Mo Salah side, like in the pocket there, was like really, really good in the second half. And I think in the first half, I think you can see the frustration kind of boil over at points. I think Virgil's yelling at him. I think he's, frustrated with himself as well in the first half. And I really thought he was quite good when he was on in the second. I tend to agree with you more, Dan. Like, I just think that like people want to get angry at someone and they see, someone playing a number 10 role, and they want someone who's going to score 16 goals a game or 16 goals a year. And like, I just don't think that that's his game.
I think I figured it out. I think I figured out what it is. I think the problem is the fact that people want McAllister to be in the 10 because McAllister is I think he is a better footballer than Szoboszlai. I think he's better in tight spaces.
Yeah. He's got a nose for goal too. He can find a goal.
He does. He doesn't have Szoboszlai's energy or his pressing or his running or his directness, but he does kind of have that little nifty bit.
Yeah.
And the reason why people want McAllister at a 10 is because they want to buy a 6. So I think that's the logical progression. It's like we need to move McAllister to the 10. We need to buy a 6 to move McAllister to the 10. And if we move McAllister to 10, we can move Szoboszlai somewhere else and then get rid of him. And that's the image I think most people have of this in their minds. And listen, I'm going to be quite honest. I think Szoboszlai's been flat. I think he's been inconsistent this year. I think he has good moments. I think he provides a lot of the dirty work, but I think he hasn't hit the heights you would really want. Like if he was a little bit sharper or had a little more confidence, I think he'd have like a couple more goals, a couple more assists, and then no one would complain. But that's kind of where we're at right now, where if you're not giving this extra 2 to 3%, you can kind of tell a difference. And we can talk about that more with our transfer links a bit later on. Now, miss Shakar IQ. Listen, Jay Muse, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, Dominic Szoboszlai is one of the most tactically aware players. He came under the Red Bull system at Salzburg and Leipzig. If he's the captain of Hungary, he plays a deep-lying defensive mid at Hungary, which is what I think Slot wants to use him for at Liverpool eventually. He presses very well. He's always looking around and trying to communicate. Yeah, him and Van Dijk have a go during the game. That's because Liverpool are playing bad and the press is off, so Szoboszlai, they're going at each other trying to figure it out. The great choke is on by Rommel. That's hilarious coming from a guy named Rommel, who is probably the most underrated general of entire World War II in the Wehrmacht, which is a whole nother thing we can get into later if this is the World War II podcast. We're not going to.
Literally history podcast with Dan and Colin. Here we go.
Oh, listen, look, we can go at it. Toby can do it too. I can flex my degrees, Colin. I got them. I got all those degrees, buddy.
We can't. We'll lose people so quick.
No. It'll be great. All right. So, Toby, Szoboszlai, what is your opinion before we get into our transfers and kind of talk about more what Liverpool are potentially doing in this window and in the summer?
Before I go to Szoboszlai, I want to give shout out to Rommel. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think that pictures of the Shire. I was on a Lord of the Rings binge a couple weeks back, so absolutely love the picture. Shout out to you, my guy.
Great soundtrack, by the way. I love, yes, it is Rommel.
Rommel. Okay, I'll try to remember for next time he comes comments. But great soundtrack. Anyways, Szoboszlai. At one point I was on that wagon, or I shouldn't say wagon, but on that side where Szoboszlai, he's kind of not living up to what we need him to be. But then I watched a video on Panenka FC. I recommend y'all go check that out, and people on the chat go check it out as well. It talks about Szoboszlai and kind of like what you said, Dan, how he plays a role, and his role is a little bit different on the team. He's pressing, he's passing. It's just things that we don't notice. And I decided after watching that video that I was going to pay more attention to that. And I've noticed, he does play a role. But I do agree that I think a lot of people have this idea, or I wouldn't even say an idea, but how the number 10 role should be, right? But like what I guess what I've come to learn is we need to detach from that and kind of say, okay, what is the number 10 role in a traditional system versus the number 10 role in slot system? And I think that when we start seeing it from that end, we'll start to see how Szoboszlai contributes. It's an unorthodox, untraditional way, but it definitely contributes to the team and how we progress the ball forward, how we get the ball back, the pressing. I think I go back to the Arsenal game. I think that first half we missed his pressing big time, because I think we gave Arsenal way too much space in the first half. But when he came in, press, there's just little things, even though mundane and we don't pay attention to them. I understand, because I don't like to consider myself a detail-oriented person, but they do contribute in some way, even though they're not big, they're not noticeable. They do somehow contribute, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I have a couple of theories on this based on how this team is. And this is based on our transfer business in the past, the type of players we have, and how I think the Slot wants to evolve this team going forward. Before we transition to that, though, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, get in the comments. Like we've had a couple with Lissetti and Jay Muse as always as well. And yes, we also must mention that that Sels was Yashin today. He was really good. He had a really good game. I think that if Jota was a little bit more confident or a little bit more informed, I think he scores another one and we go 2-1 and win the game, or possibly 3-1. But he did have a good game. I want to talk about transfers real quick before we'll get more into Khvicha Kvaratskhelia and Seamus today, the two players that Liverpool have been most strongly linked to recently. And we'll talk about Martin Zubimendi, who is potentially off to Arsenal in the summer, which is hilarious, by the way. Everyone's talking about a left back, and we talked about Robinson and Simicaz. I think one we're not linked with a left back right now is that the left back we want is potentially unavailable until the summer. So we're not going to hear about anything until May/June. Second thing could be the fact that I think they probably want Beck or Chambers. And third, I think that defenders are going to be we're going to prioritize defenders based on what happens with Van Dijk. So if Van Dijk signs, I think they go buy a left back. If Van Dijk doesn't sign, I think they back a center back and they just roll with what we have at fullback. Because it could be a situation where we have Trent go, Van Dijk stay, Salah go, or some combination of that, and you have to organize your transfer plans around those realities. And that's why I think we're probably not going to know who we're going to sign until July 1st, I think is when the transfer window opens, when we find out who is staying and who is going. And that's when Liverpool are going to pull triggers. I think you have to realize Liverpool do business very, very slowly, gradually, and then accelerate very quickly. That we are a club that Hughes, Edwards, the entire infrastructure is built around the fact that when they move in like 3 to 4 days. And if they're not signed by the 4th day, they're probably not getting signed. Look at Zubimendi, Caicedo, Lavia. If it drags on, it usually doesn't happen. Gravenberch was literally signed in like 2 days. Indo happened like an afternoon. So Murillo, I knew someone's going to bring it up. I do not agree we should sign Murillo. And the only reason I don't think we should sign Murillo is that I think there are more interesting center back options on the market that I might even be aware of. But what do you guys think about the transfer window as is? I don't think they sign anybody unless we're signing, say, a player that's coming in the summer, like Simas. Kvaratskhelia, I think they were all ready to fully ready to move forward this summer, but he seems confirmed by PSG. What do you guys think about the transfers right now, especially like the left back position? Toby, Colin. I'll go with Colin first, and then Toby, give me your thoughts. And we'll move on to Martin Mountain Shagger Zubimendi.
He loves those mountains in London.
There are some big mountains.
Some huge mountains in London. I mean, I think it's a really interesting point you bring up, Dan, which is that Liverpool do move slow, and then when it's time to finalize the business, then they're fast to make sure that the business is done. I think that having the contract situations of those three not be resolved yet is a bigger concern for the recruitment team than it might be for the dressing room. If you can't accurately plan where you absolutely have to make signings versus where you maybe would just kind of like an upgrade at left back, or because Robertson and Simicas are not out of contract. Like, we have two starting kind of Premier League quality like left backs. Like, they would start for tons of other teams. Just because we kind of want one, just because we want Kirkes, doesn't mean that if Van Dijk doesn't resign, that plan's going out the window. That is absolutely not something that we're going to be doing if we need a starting level center back. I'm really hoping that some of these contract announcements start to roll here. I'm getting anxious, and not even about the Trent one. Actually is kind of my least, the one that I'm like least anxious about. I think that one's either like it's either gonna happen or it's not. And you know what, if Connor Bradley's our starting right back, for the foreseeable future, like, I'm very happy with that. Like, I think he's going to be an outrageous player. I think he already is a fantastic player. But like, we saw what happens when you can't plan your business, a year in advance last summer, which is like, we just scrambled the whole summer for nothing, for no business to be done. So if you have to scramble again because you're not sure who is definitely committing versus who isn't, that worries me for the recruitment teams, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think the biggest one is Van Dijk rather than, say, Trent or Salah, because I think with Salah, we had already made plans to move beyond him. I just think that those plans, i.e. your Darwin Nunez, your Cody Gakpo's, and your Luis Diaz's, have not quite hit the heights. I think Chiesa was also bought as insurance in case Salah goes, and we also still have Harvey Elliott. I think if Salah stays, I think you'll see Harvey and Darwin or Jota go. If Salah goes, I think you might see a situation where he buys a forward and keeps the forwards. And Diaz, unless you see like Diaz go, which I think is the more likely. Yeah, what was it called?
How is Diaz going to continue to be happy to be making 50 a week when other players in the you know what I mean? Like that seems like that situation's gonna, whether or not it's gonna be a new contract from us or he's gonna demand to move on. Like, you know, he doesn't look super comfortable playing center forward. He probably wants to get he's getting to the point where he needs if he wants to get that big contract, like the time is now for that to happen for him. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think with Lucho, it's also a situation where he's 28 now, so this is going to be his last contract. So this is either he gets his big pay raise and extension for say 4 or 5 years, or you say we'll sell you if an offer comes in, or he probably runs his it might be a situation where he runs his contract down and signs for Barca in 2 years, which is that is a possibility. Well, this is the thing. I think Liverpool have been very willing to let players run their contracts down because it's allowed them to plan out their phases, and it hasn't really limited our business in terms of players we bought in. If you look at actually the dollar amounts we've spent compared to selling players and letting players run out their contracts, the only difference you see is that when we sell a player, we just bring in like 3 really quickly, or we bring in 2 very quickly. We just move a lot faster because it's like we need to fill this gap. But I think there might be a willingness to let either both of them run their contract down to one. But I think that's also contingent on what Salah does. Toby, your also thoughts on the left back transfer situation as well. Are you a Kirkez in? Bring me Kirkez or bring me death?
Yeah, so I didn't even think about the center back thing, honestly. But I do imagine if Virgil, I guess because I'm confident that he'll resign. Maybe that's just me being Delulu or whatever. But going to the left back, I'm to be honest with you, like I'm kind of not sold on Kirkez. Reason why is I've watched like 2 or 3 Bournemouth games, and I tell myself each time, okay, this is the game I want to focus on Kirkez. Well, I always get drawn away by some other players. So the 2 games I watched were by happenstance, Fulham and what was the other team? Everton. And the 2 players I got carried away by were other players that were linked with Anthony Robinson and Jared Branthwaite. I think that's how you pronounce his name. So I guess like me personally, I don't see like maybe like I said, probably me being Delulu, but I just don't see it as Kirkez. I don't understand what's there. Robinson, on the other hand, I think he is a good defender, but can also provide offense too. Something that me personally I like. I imagine there might be some other options too. Kirkez, he just seems to be the big guy, the big name right now. And I think we were talking about it in the group chat the other day. We're usually linked to a player. It usually never ends up happening. It's usually something that comes out of left field, something that we don't expect happening. Something to happen. Excuse me. Like take for example, Chiesa. Like literally, that kind of came out of nowhere, and it came together, as you said, Dan. Came together in a matter of days. I'm not. If my mind can remind me correctly, or if I can remember correctly, Marmardashvili, that was another thing. I think that took some time, but it's like it was kind of a back and forth thing with Marmardashvili as well. But we ended up getting that deal done. Yeah, I imagine that left back that might be the name that we're linked with, but I don't think Kirkez will be the guy. I do wonder. I kind of want to highlight this too. Like we probably should start paying attention a little bit to what FSG or what we do in the with the academy players, like who we sign in the academy, because they might FSG and Arne Slot, they might have like this plan coming on. Like one of the reasons why I say Anthony Robinson's my guy, not just because he's a US guy, but like he's 27, right? You give him a contract, he'll be like 30, 31, 32, right? Well, that gives you enough time to develop a player within the academy, something like what you did with Bradley and Trent, like develop in the academy, call him up, let him kind of quote unquote learn. And then when Robinson's contract expires, well, you have that guy that can step up. So in my opinion, like pay attention, might want to pay a little more attention to what we do in the academy, because that might show us what we're going to be doing going forward. So
yeah, I think that's a good option. Well, this is what I mean. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things in the air, because I think there is a I think they rate Beck and Chambers. It's just that I think they might see Chambers as the next one to step up. If you look at the echelon, Beck is part of that 22-23 crowd. So he is part of your Tyler Mortons and Leighton Clarksons, which are the youth players that got moved on and sold. But McConnell, Batchtich, and Chambers are kind of this all in the same like youth class. So I think those are the ones that they're going to see. Are they good enough? I think Morton he's going to get sold. I think, and Charlie agrees with me, that Beck is probably going to be sold. And upon further reflection, I think he's right. I think Calvin Ramsey is most likely going to get sold too, the right back we bought from Aberdeen, because he just hasn't got the move. Unless he comes in and really impresses, which is a possibility that Trent goes and Ramsey comes in the summer and does impress with Bradley, because they're about both 20 and 21. And I think it's also important to remember that there was a time where our two starting right backs were Joe Gomez and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And that was 2017-18. And if you don't believe me, go back and watch those teams. Gomez was starting right back a lot of these games, and Trent was the other one. And that was like, do we need a defensive right back or offensive right back before Gomez got moved to the middle? Oh, yeah, Jim Hughes. Thank you, Nico Williams. Again, part of that youth system. I do want to talk about the bench uses a little bit, just because we're going to move on to the Khvicha Kvaratskhelia first. But just to touch on the bench a bit, Slot hasn't really it's interesting. He has started. So if you look at the players he has given the most starts to, I'm just going to tell you who they are right now based on the Athletic. It's Van Dijk, Grav, Salah, Robbo, Trent, Maka. So that's like the people who have more. They have the most starts at the moment. McAllister would have more, but he got that suspension. Robertson obviously had a red card. Trent had that minor injury. This is all league games, by the way. Van Dijk 20, Grav 20, and Salah. So if you look at the spine of the team, it's been Verge, Grav, Salah. And then after that, Diaz 14, Sobo 13, Konate 13, Gakpo 12, Jones 10, Darwin 7, Jota 7. This is starts, by the way, not games played. Joe, who just got into rhythm before he got that injury. Simicast has 2, Kwanzaa has 2, Bradley has 1, and then everyone else has been subbed on as well. So you can see very quickly that there is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 14 players right now that have more than 5 starts, not just appearances, but just starts. If you want to do by how many games they've been played, there is a drop off from Kwanzaa. So essentially it's been Harvey, Kwanzaa, Keza has 1 appearance, but he's been injured. I think the problem is that Slot is trying to figure out. So let's talk about Wataru Endo. I think a lot of people wrote off Wataru Endo as a player, but Slot has rejigged him into a center back. And I think that's where Slot sees him. And I think that's been interesting tactical changes he's made. Jarrell Kwanzaa, I think he rates Kwanzaa very highly, but I think he's being very protective of him. Harvey, I think he just doesn't know how to use Harvey right now. And he doesn't feel loyalty to him. So Klopp literally said his one regret when leaving was that he did not play Harvey Elliott more. So Klopp rates him. So Harvey's obviously a good player. I don't think any of us should doubt Harvey's quality. But Klopp really tried to make Harvey work in so many ways. I think he backed his work ethic, his technical ability. So I don't think there's a problem attitude. It's probably that what Slot wants with this team right now. Again, if Salah goes in the summer, he's probably going to turn Harvey Elliott into a right winger who plays as a more of a creative, hard-working right winger who's just pressing all the time. It's not because he's fast. He's using him as more of a right mid. If you can't call it, Toby, if you guys can think about like the old school right mids who weren't very pacey, but they could cross the ball, good on the ball, and they worked their socks off. And I think that's probably where Harvey is at the moment, is that he's not really a 10, how Slot likes his 10s, but he likes probably him as a winger. And I think with Jarrell, I think he's just protecting Jarrell Kwanzaa. People say he doesn't because he doesn't rate him. I don't think it's that. I think he's like, who can I win with right now? It's Konate and Van Dijk. And most of us would have said that going into the year, that on paper, your best center back pairing is supposed to be Konate and Van Dijk. And I think Slot has been these are the 15 players. I know that they're going to give me what I want. I don't know about these other 5. So I'm going to roll with my 15 ride or die. And to be quite honest, most title winning sides have that. City historically, even Liverpool historically, they've all had that. They've all had, that very strong, solid, and then someone will come in and play like, 5 or 10 games, but everyone gets about like 20 appearances at the end of the day. So it's hard to tell right now. We might see more rotation going forward, especially with Rotara Endo getting some games and Gomez getting a couple games where he was subbed out. But again, there's a very solid third from Jota at 13 to Gakpo and Van Dijk and Grav and Salah, who all have 20 appearances. So cool. I want to move on now. I know it's a lot. Let's talk about Kvaratskhelia. Now, I know Jay Muse mentioned that he didn't think it would happen like Caicedo. I wasn't. I didn't think it was going to happen, but I don't doubt that Liverpool were interested and were willing to match or bid. It just depended on the player. And I think the Caicedo situation kind of reinforces that. Because I think with Caicedo, I think York called them and told Brighton, we'll pay you. Chelsea aren't paying you. We're willing to pay you to match the deal. And I think the agency said sure, because they thought it would either accelerate the deal with Chelsea or he would just go to Liverpool. And Brighton, I think, were also like, we'll just get our money either way. So I think that was where Liverpool were trying to be opportunistic, and it didn't work. I think with Kvaratskhelia, it was also they found out that he wanted to move this January window when Napoli are top of Serie A, and they're like, we weren't expecting this. Let's see what we can get. And it just seems like PSG he just wants to go to Paris, which is fine. Paris is a beautiful city. Listen, I will say nothing. What is it called? Sometimes. It's sometimes a very beautiful city. Live at Paris Saint-Germain, where it is in Paris, southwest Paris, if you've ever been and look at a map. Very nice area. France and Europe is very nice. He stays in Europe. I hate to say this, but continental Europe is just best than mainland England. I'm sorry for my English watching. It just is. Because only in Europe can you drive from Paris to Oviedo or Madrid or Frankfurt for a bevy, for a bevy in a Bratwurst, a Wiener Schnitzel, and then go about your day. England doesn't have that. You drive from toast and pint to gravy and pint. That's all you have in England, but continental Europe just has way more. But in all seriousness, were you surprised by these links, Toby? Were you surprised about our links to Kvaratskhelia or Kvaradata, if you want to call him that?
Yeah, I know we were linked to Kvaratskhelia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Kvaratskhelia.
Close enough.
I know close enough. Yeah, I'm trying. I hate his last name. I have it 1 minute, the next I don't. Anyways, back on topic. I know during the summer we were linked to him, so it wasn't necessarily surprising for me to see that we were linked with him. I think we'll be linked to a lot of players. Just we won't make any moves. We'll just quote unquote monitor the situation. So a little frustration getting out there, but I guess I was a little surprised by like how much momentum it gained, because for me it just seemed like, oh, this was one of those classic monitor the situation. We'll be there. The opportunity arises, those opportunistic signings, and it definitely would have been if that happened. But I was more surprised with the momentum it gained. Like our group chat blew up when Paul Joyce, or excuse me, when David Ornstein posted that on X. For me, David Ornstein, I do, but at the same time, I kind of don't add weight to his post. But when Paul Joyce does post something, I will add weight to it. I'll take him to serious consideration. So that's when I start thinking about it too. Like, oh shoot, this could actually happen. But as days went on, we lost that momentum. I would like to put on my conspiracy theorist hat for a minute and say, like, I wonder if there is just something more to this than just like, oh, we were in on Kvaratskhelia, Khvicha. I'm not just calling Khvicha. And like, I wonder if this was just Liverpool trying to get PSG to hurry up the deal, try to spend money on players, not give them much time to think about this, or how can I put this? Let them work on a deal at their own pace. Like, no, move at their own pace. I think this was just like, I wonder if it was one of those things where Liverpool wanted that information to come out saying, hey, we're interested in this player, and then PSG comes out and say, oh no, we need to hurry up, we gotta make this deal, because Liverpool does have that history of swooping players at the last minute, a la Lucho Diaz. But I also wonder too if this kind of like, this either has something to do with Salah. Like, I'm not sure what PSG financial situation is, but like I do know like they're in on Salah, so I wonder if like them putting their money where Khvicha's at takes them out of the running for Salah, or two, it forces with PSG doing that, it takes their eye off the ball on another target. I mean, a couple weeks back, or about I want to say about a month back or so, we were talking about Ryan Cherky. So that's always an option. I don't know if PSG was in on him, but it's worth thinking about. Conspiracy theories. Let me get y'all's minds. Whatever.
No, I actually think that's an interesting point. I'm not fully aware of what their PSR situation is because it is PSG and PSG is just the state of Qatar. So it's like you don't really know what the situation is. I do think the thing is Liverpool aren't going to link, or they're not going, Joyce and Ornstein aren't going to hear about Liverpool moving for a player unless Liverpool are seriously interested about moving with a player. Everyone jokes about the monitoring FC thing and the interested FC because one, they're journalists and they can't say Liverpool want this player and will move with this player because when it doesn't happen, it has there's a credibility. So monitoring is a very nebulous term. I think Liverpool are monitoring every player. So like it's essentially them saying Liverpool monitor every player. They have a file on you until you stop playing football, essentially. I'm sure there's a file somewhere on Gaston Ramirez somewhere. I'm sure there's still people that have what Colin was that?
There's a file on me.
There's a file on you. Yeah, no, there is. Like every single James Madison who Liverpool were linked with back in the day, I'm sure they saw a file on him. So I think we think of transfers in very binary terms and that it happens or it doesn't, when these are very always fluid contract situations that evolve over time and move very quickly. I will say the last one we saw was Gakpo when he was rumored to United. Now, granted, we haven't picked as many players except for McAllister last year, and then also Ryan Gravenberch because no one was looking at Ryan Gravenberch, which is hilarious. And I know, crazy, right? But we haven't really got in for a player that's been in competitive with other teams like seriously because one, we had the Chouameni situation where after the Champions League final? Yeah, it was after the Champions League final where we tried to sign him and Madrid wanted Mbappe and PSG said, no way, Jose, to Florentino Perez, who's not a Jose, but they said, no way, pay. I can't think of a good Spanish pun here. So someone fluent in the Espanol, please give me a good Spanish pun. I think it's a situation where Liverpool are trying to always be in the room with the player or with the agent, making sure that they're ready to go in case a situation doesn't develop the way they do. And you're going to miss out on targets, but Liverpool aren't going to feel sorry for themselves. But I think it is interesting because we are obviously looking at a forward, which means I don't think they're confident that Salah will sign, probably because he's the one who's going to ask for the most money. And it's probably the one you have to evolve the fastest because Diaz is coming up, because Jota is coming up on his contract. And, we don't know what's going to happen with Darwin going forward. But Colin, I'll come to you the same way, and then we'll move on to our last transfer, which is Stefano Simas. So go ahead, Colin.
I think pretty much everything you guys have said, I do agree with. I see this from a slightly different maybe perspective. Like I think this one is more simple than that, which is that we've got like 4 dudes who can play left wing. And like we just don't need to be paying Napoli money for someone who can play left wing. Like I think we like him a lot. I think we could, in theory, we could offer him, good wages, assuming that we could probably then sell Diaz so that he could go get a contract somewhere. Like I think all of that makes like all the sense. Like we just have, we've got two guys who in Gakpo and Diaz, who that is their preferred and best position on the field. And I think the both of them are like more more proven at that position. Certainly, you can make an argument whether or not they're better prospects going forward, but in the future. But I just don't think that doesn't to me seem like it's very high on the list of priorities at all, unless one or multiple of them are going to be moved to the right hand side, and that would also mean that Arne Slot's interpretation of what a right-handed winger is.
Oh, it's 100% different. Oh, it's 100% different.
So I just don't think that I think we like him a lot. I think under different circumstances, if we actually need someone in that position, like I think we do the deal. I think we like him that much, for that news to come out. Like I think that's something that we just do it, but we just we need that right now.
Yeah, so I have my big thing is the fact that what Slot and Liverpool are looking for is a forward that is either a all-action number 9 who can do everything. Yeah. So I think is why looking at Stefano Simas is that someone who can hold the ball, play the ball, and finish. That's essentially what they're looking for right now. They're not looking for a Darwin who plays better in a 2. They're looking for someone who can play as a 1 but can pair. So they're playing somewhat.
Joao Pedro.
Well, I would say, I think with Joao Pedro needs a partner, though. Like, if you're playing Joao Pedro would have to play the 10. He's like,
I don't know, but that's what we said about Bobby. That's what people said about Bobby Firmino, too. And like that, like when he was that same age, we're like, no, he's a 10. Like, he can't just play up front as a 9. And if you build around that idea, like, that he's not just going to, like, lead the line and be the most athletic person, he's not going to be Erling Haaland. Like, you just have to build it in a different way. But I think your point, Dan, is correct. Like that, it's not. That's not the profile that we're looking for at the moment. Is not like a guy who plays left wing.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm getting with the Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. I think with him, they're looking for someone who can play across. So I think that in their minds, Slot and Hughes, what they're looking for is they're looking at a situation where we have question marks over Darwin. Is he going to fit long term, and would he push for a move? Jota and Diaz need their contracts renewed because they're up to 2 years. So does Konate. So we need to start locking down those futures. We know what Chiesa offers. Slot prefers a right winger who is the most industrious. So the right winger is your most industrious player. Salah is not that, and that's why our right side is always the weakest, because Trent's not the best defender in space and 1-on-1, but he's not bad. And I think people overestimate how bad he is. But Salah is also not a defensive player. Like, he is always the most highest player on the field. Your thing about Bobby, this is where it gets tricky. If you look at how Bobby Firmino was played by Jurgen Klopp for most of his career, he was I hate to say a false nine. He was a center forward that played more like a 10. If you actually look at how they structured the it was a 4-3-3 that looked like a 4-4-2 diamond when Firmino played, and like Mane and Salah were pretty much playing as like inside forwards as well. So, and I think what made Bobby so great is that he could technically be a 9 and hold the ball up, but he also went through scoring streaks like we've seen with Pedro, and actually what we've seen with Darwin in many ways, where him being the goal scorer is kind of not the main point of this side, because you have someone like Salah who is so unique as a right winger. And I think right now this side is geared towards Salah, and that's why he is the highest goal scorer and the assister, and why everyone else is not getting as much numbers as you would expect, except for Diaz. I think Diaz is actually having a very good season because he kind of fits what Slot wants from a winger. So I think with Kvaratskhelia, I think his profile is more, he's so unique. You just have to get him. So because he's essentially Diaz as a free running player, but like more and younger and faster. So it's like you're getting Diaz, but 5 years younger and not quite the left winger. He is primary on the left, but you could turn him into a pressing 10/second striker. You could also say you could move him to the right and have him play as like a traditional right winger and turn into a pressing, dribbling right winger with Chiesa backing up and offering as well. So I get what you mean by the fact he's not the player on paper, but they're not looking as the player on paper. They're saying, look at this profile. We could do anything with this. And I think that's what's more interesting. But I do take your point of the fact that we don't need another left winger. And I was in that group chat last summer, so don't worry. And then I bought into Anthony Gordon, and then I was willing to go on the Anthony Gordon train. And I'm still willing to go on the Anthony Gordon train, though I think now that he signed his contract, I think there are other paths we can move. Which brings me to Stefanos Simas. So before we got rid of Simicast, we're possibly going to get another Greek player. Obviously, I'm not expecting Toby and Colin to watch Bundesliga Zweinen. Bundesliga 2, by the way. Or Zweinen, second. The second tier of the German professional league. Or FC Nürnberg. Fußball Club Nürnberg, located in Nürnberg, Germany. I love working on my German. I haven't done umlauts in so long. Here's the thing about Stefanos Simas. Colin's like rubbing his head right now. He doesn't have time for this nonsense. Here's the thing about Stefanos Simas. he is essentially the all-action center forward striker that people want, that Darwin is kind of giving you, but kind of not. Where Darwin is giving you the pressing and the running, but he's not really giving you the goals or the assist or the build-up play. Stefano Simas is more of that traditional all-action player. It's right now. Its situation is Nuremberg are going to pay his release clause or buyout clause from POAK, which is in Thessaloniki in Greece, and they're going to flip him for 25 plus add-ons, which is probably going to be around 28 million euros. And the reason they're doing this is because they're 9 points off top in Bundesliga Zweiten, and they're most likely not going to get promoted. So they need money because they're going to try and push for promotion. So for me, that kind of looks like it looks like a situation where they're trying to get younger. And I think that's been the situation. There are no older players above 25 they're going for. Mamouche is 26. They're not going for him. I don't think they should have gone for him, but they're not going for him. Gjorkas is 26, 27. They're not going to go for him. Kvaratskhelia, 23. If you sign 2 contracts with him, you're probably going to get 8 to 10 years. Simas, again, you're probably looking at getting potentially 10 or 11 years out of him. He's a little bit older than Jaden Dance, I believe. He just turned 18 he just turned 18 this year, so they're about the same age. And I think they're buying him with the idea that he could potentially be in the rotation starting in the summer. I don't know what you guys think about them buying an 18-year-old center forward, striker forward to lead the line. I believe he's 18. I maybe need to double check that. But what did you think when you heard of Stefano Simas, besides who is that guy? Colin, I'll go to you first.
So I had seen his name, but I was like...
Correction, he's 19.
Okay. I mean, listen, he's less than 20. He's somewhere slightly less than 20.
Just for JMU's, no, we're not selling to Saudi.
I don't... I mean, that's a bigger situation for the summer. I think that I don't know how we're going to solve that one. I'm actually good with this. I think that this, I think the idea of getting someone who is very moldable, who still is very raw, is something that we heard a lot about when Arne Slot was coming in, and that he likes players and to be able to work with really younger players to kind of mold them in the direction that he really sees the team. So if they see that, this is someone with real potential, and I think, Jim, you said looks like an Edwards laptop type for £25 million. I'm good with that. That works for me. And if Nuremberg, make a penny off of it, I think that that's smart business from them. So not, no complaints from me. I think that that's like a one for the future, and not the distant future, a one for in the next 2 to 3 years for him to come good, at a really reasonable cost, I think.
Yeah, and I think if, for me, I think we talk about profiles with Kvaratskhelia. I think with him, it's very interesting because it's a young center forward /9, which one, I think it's to show that Dan's is most likely getting a loan move. I think we've seen that Jaden Dan's definitely has finishing instincts and could definitely have a career. I think he's less of a set prospect as, say, Trey Neoni or even Bajcetic to some degree, though I think Bajcetic is maybe his attitude has let him down a bit. But I think that Jaden Dan's is there's something there. I don't know if it's something that will stay at Liverpool because he's very much a throwback striker, but he's definitely someone that I think he can make it work somewhere. I know he can work somewhere, if not at Liverpool. Similar with Dominic Solanke. When we sold Solanke to Bournemouth, I wasn't saying, oh, he was a flop. I was saying he'll probably come good eventually.
His ability, or the prospect of his ability, was very apparent. I think that's a really good parallel to make between two. You could see you're something's not right about how he's fitting with us, but that's going to happen, or that's going to work if he gets the correct coaching and belief behind him. And I think you're absolutely right about that.
And I think it's important to remember that when we bought Solanke, he was 20. So he's not that much older than Stefano Simas, and he was the 4th choice. with a side that was made it to a Champions League final. I think we were in the Champions League final. Yeah, he was on a fourth choice in a side that they got all the way to the Champions League final that year. Obviously, he kind of it doesn't really work for him at Liverpool. I think that's mostly because that we get good very quickly, and therefore he. See, I thought he went on loan. Yeah, no, it's 18-19. So we sell him in the 18-19 season. I think it very quickly. Liverpool figure out that actually we need to. We've gone from challenging for top four to challenging for titles, and I think that they're willing to move on that. But Edwards was there when we signed Solanke. He was very much a Edwards signing, that very opportunistic, get him from Chelsea's academy. I think with Stefano Simas, I think when people say that, you don't want to wait a couple years, it might come to nothing. I don't think they're buying him as a prospect. I think they're buying him to be the fifth, sixth choice now. But I think if they're buying him now, I can go back to the contract situation. They're buying him because if Salah goes, you're going to need people to play right wing. If Salah and Nunez goes, I don't think he'll go to Saudi. I think he'll go to, let's just say, for like Atletico Madrid, like someone that plays with a striker like him, that needs someone like him that are willing to spend that money or could match what Liverpool would want. I could see Atletico Madrid buying him. The thing is that if you're buying him, I think that's also Liverpool, for lack of a better term, trying to be frugal with their money. Also saying, let's get the 19-year-old who can be sixth choice forward, who will get, let's say, 15 games this first season and could get on a hot streak. And we can take that money and buy potentially a center back, because they might have to replace a center back, or potentially buy a left back if one becomes available, or a left center back who could play left back. I think that what Stefano Simas kind of represents future planning on the opposite end, where with Khvicha Kvaratskhelia, he's just so good, you just have to throw money and you'll figure out the rest. With him, it's more of a let's buy someone that we know can be our sixth choice and will give us money to free up to focus on elsewhere. Now, it's not sixth choice in the way we would want, where, or how fans would want, where it's like your sixth choice should be Jota and you should buy like Isaac or Marmoush or Yorkes. I think they're focusing more on reinforcing the bottom, bringing in a Simas, someone who can come in and be competitive for that position. And it might work out that, they buy him in, he's not good enough, they flip him, and they go buy Šeško, or they buy, some other player. But I think buying him at 25 million euros, 28 million euros is also, there's not a lot of expectation on him, because it's not the price tag of Darwin Nunez. No one's expecting him to be Erling Haaland or Alexander Isak. People are expecting him to be, what the expectation would be competitive with, say, Dan's and with the first team. But Toby, I'll come to you about Simas and we'll kind of wrap it up there.
Yeah, so my first question was, or literally, I thought this until like a couple minutes ago. I was wondering, does he play left back? And like I said, a couple minutes ago, I figured out he was a striker. So, but yeah, striker is probably gonna be another position we look at in the summer, maybe even January. I mean, as you can tell right now with Khvicha, who can play all those positions in the front three. But this does. It smells and it looks like that quote unquote opportunistic signing, if they were so to choose to do that. We all know how FSG likes to operate. They like to find that quote unquote diamond in the rough. Shout out to my Aladdin fans out there if you understood that reference. Dang it, you threw me off. Anyways, they're always searching for that diamond in the rough, and if they think that this guy Simas is that guy, and then I can totally see a move where they do. I mean, see a scenario where they do bring him in. I mean, FSG, they don't like paying big money for these players. They like that. That's why you bring in a guy like Slot. They want to bring him in, like bring in a guy like Slot. You pay like a low fee, hope that he develops. So then when he does break out, they can laugh in the faces of other clubs saying, "Ha ha, y'all spent 90 million pounds on such and such player, while we spent 20 pounds on this young prodigy." That that's just how they operate. That's how FSG operates, and I think that's how they operate with Klopp. That's definitely how they're going to operate with Slot. So I think that is going to be the norm going forward, or I'm going to put probably new norm, or just something that we shouldn't be surprised about whenever we see these type of links.
Yeah, and listen, I think that when you think about how Liverpool approach things, and I hate to say FSG because it's kind of anachronistic and doesn't really fit how Liverpool function. But what their fundamental philosophy is in the market with their data driven is value. Where is the value in the market? And that's why you have a situation where they have offered 3 players contracts, which you normally the mantra wasn't they don't give old players contracts, but they're giving Van Dijk a contract. They bought Mamardashvili in the summer because they saw the value in getting this goalkeeper in now when Kelleher's probably going to go. They've already sold Pitaluga, which is what I was pushing against it. Like we had Pitaluga, we had Harvey Davies, we have all these Dublin goalkeepers, but Pitaluga's gone. He's been sold to Fluminense. Harvey Davies is probably going to get a move. Queven Kelleher is getting a move. So the starting position is going to be, or the backup position is going to be between Yaros and Mamardashvili for Allison's position. And I expect Allison to move on as well. So what they always look at is value. Now, value is as a general broad term to us may not like we could all debate what value means in our own context, but they have a very internal metric with what they mean by value. And what they mean by value is probably what do they cost now? What are they going to cost in 3 years? And what do what they cost now? Is that an improvement? Is it allow us to do other things on the market? You can come up with some sort of internal metric. They probably have, because they all have the people with PhDs with mathematics and rocket science. They literally have people who have invented stats and indexes internally to determine this player moves the dial by X much based on this contract. So they've literally quantified as much as possible all these decisions in order to try and come to the best conclusion. That doesn't mean they get it right, because at the end of the day, it's decisions and it's agents. And it doesn't mean they haven't made mistakes or they won't make mistakes or they're not making mistakes. It's more about understanding that what they're always trying to do is look for value. So Kvaratskhelia for 50 million euros, 60 million euros, they're probably saying this play would be like 120, like, 3 years ago or 2 years down the line. So we can get him now because the value's there. Chiesa value, Mamardashvili value, Gravenberg value. Szoboszlai you could argue was a reach because of his release clause, but you could also argue value because he's 22, 23, and he's Hungary's captain. So his value is not going down. McAllister value. You can keep going through. Nunez kind of a reach, but still 65 million value. He's Uruguay's top striker, and Edwards isn't going to sell for what he's going to get back. Calvin Ramsey value. Fabio Carvalho, we bought him, we flipped him in value. Harvey Elliott value. Like you can go through every single transfer and you can see that underlying philosophy of value. The only time you don't really see us have value is like 2014-15, which is the one after the first title, where you could argue that there is a value idea, but it's like we're spending 25 for Lazar Markovic because he could potentially have value, but he never plays. He drops off a cliff.
Yikes.
Javier Manquillo, who I liked Javier Manquillo. I thought he was a decent player. Doesn't work. Alberto Moreno, he does work, but he's not good enough. Andy Robinson, value. What we spent half of what we spent on Moreno for Andy Robinson is my point. So how we approach value in the market is what they do. And they're approaching it that rather than just, what does Rodgers want? What does Klopp want? What does Slot want? Now, they're obviously part of the conversation, but they're not the one driving the process. And I think that irritates a lot of people. You would say Liverpool Red Sox FC. Listen, Jay Muse, all I'm going to say, the Red Sox are the most successful baseball franchise the past 21 years. They've won the most World Cups. Believe it or not, regardless of how many the Astros have been to, the Red Sox have won 4. No one's won more than 4. I'm not saying that to defend their decision making. I'm saying that because the proof is in the pudding. It does get results. It may not be immediate. What is the little asterisk? What's the asterisk there, Toby?
I said boo Astros. You mentioned
boo
the Astros. I'm a Rangers fan, so I have to boo them every chance I get.
And Colin's a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, and I'm an Atlanta Braves fan by reputation. I just like the Red Sox because of the Red Sox. We all go through our struggles in life. So my point being is that we're not going to see one transfer block. We're probably going to see multiple ideas competing. The young player, the more advanced player, high value, more money, less money, yada yada yada. My point being is that we're going to see a lot more different transfers come around. We might see a situation where there's like let's say a 70 million bid for a random center back somewhere, a Bastoni, let's just say out there. They might say throw 70 million Inter Milan for Bastoni, and we'll see what happens. We just don't know because they've done that before. Like I want us to remember that this is still the leadership group. Edwards is obviously not in Hughes' position that spent world record fees for midfielders, forwards, center backs, and goalkeepers. Granted, those have been broken, but they bought Virgil van Dijk, the most expensive, Allison Becker, Darwin Nunez. Like we've blown our own transfer records out of the water. So they will spend money when they feel money is there to be not there to be spent, but we can get a tangible value out of this where it makes sense. Yes, you did a very good job today as Paul James. Toby, Colin, any final thoughts before we wrap it up about the game, about the transfers, anything to say about ye old good United States of America entering our second Trump presidency? God help us all.
I have nothing to say, except that I hope Liverpool get back to their winning ways as quickly as possible. I need the joy back in my life. As you pointed out, I am a Steelers and a Pirates and a Penguins fan, and I am mired in mediocrity for what feels like, except for the Pirates, the first time in my life. So I mean, you know, some politics. Football is politics. After all, football is the most political.
Pittsburgh is politics.
Pittsburgh is very political. But just that, you know, yeah, all of my sports franchises, which have not let me down ever in my life, except the Pirates. The Pirates are the worst. They're truly the most Evertonian of my sports teams. Just perpetual losers. The rest of them, I need them to get back to their winning ways. I need some joys from somewhere.
And Toby, what about you? Your sports teams? I know you're a Rangers fan. I remember when the Rangers went to those back-to-back World Series and they lost. I think they lost both to the Cardinals, wasn't it? Was they both to the Cardinals?
No, I shall not mention 2011 World Series. David effing Freese. That's what we Ranger fans call him. But it was the Cardinals in 2011, and in 2010 it was the Giants where we got our butts kicked.
Giants. It was the Giants,
Yeah.
San Francisco Giants. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, David freaking Freese. Anyways, but we did win the World Series about a year ago, so I'm happy about that.
It was a year ago.
Yeah. I still have the hat here somewhere. I'm not going to take it out, but yeah. Since I guess we're talking about other sports teams, for all those FSG outers or anybody out there, I would like to draw your attention to this picture right here, Mr. Troy Aikman. If y'all know the team that he played for, he's the Hall of Fame quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. If you knew who the owner is for the Dallas Cowboys, Mr. Jerry Jones, you would be saying otherwise, my friends. Y'all think FSG is bad? They're bad owners. Jerry Jones is sitting in the corner just saying, "Here, hold my beer." So I recommend y'all look up Jerry Jones. I shall not go any further than that. Just look him up. Y'all will be glad that you had FSG, and you never walk alone.
Oh, Toby, please don't say that. You're going to turn Liverpool into Liverpool Twitter online spaces into a nuclear holocaust that puts Chernobyl to shame. That's what you're going to do with that. I think. How dare you praise the ownership group? John Henry doesn't even care. This man's just chilling, watching something in Boston. He's at hedge fund private equity meetings. He doesn't care. But Colin can speak about terrible ownership more than anybody else. That's the Pittsburgh Pirates. Which is sad because they are a very historic franchise and a classic of the 70s. A lot of the old baseball highlights I used to watch on ESPN Classic. Do you remember ESPN Classic, Colin?
I do. Absolutely.
Greatest channel ever. I learned so much sports. It's actually where I got to watch a lot of old Liverpool games was ESPN Classic. Mm-hmm. All we're saying, everyone in the Reds universe, is that things are good. They could be better. They will get better, inshallah.
They certainly could be worse.
They could be. We're 7 points ahead of Arsenal. It could be worse. Like, granted, we could have been 15, but we're 7, and it's not worse than the rest of them behind. There's a difference. All I'm gonna say is, guys, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to get moody. It's okay to be mad at everything and everyone. It's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, take a chill pill. Have a quick 15 by yourself. Maybe take a power nap. It could be worse, FC. James, that is the tagline for the show. It could be worse, FC. That is exactly what we are here. That I have branded that. It could be worse, guys. Listen, we're top of the Champions League. We have a return leg against Tottenham. We're still on for the quad, baby. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, guys, it could be worse, FC. Up the Reds, up the Reds, up the Reds. Inshallah, knock on wood, 20 times, up the Reds. So long, guys. Have a good luck. Have a good luck. Have a good evening. Have a good morning. Have a good night. I am sorry to assume your daytime. And you'll never walk alone.